After like 2 years, it became clear to me that the best thing I ever did was to actually join this brand.
You guys are making it work both as a married couple as well as business partners. What's been the keys that you've seen that have allowed that to flourish?
We became like a permanent threesome. Karin, myself, and College H.U.N.K.S.
An aspiration is to get your business systemized to a point where you could walk away from it for a month, maybe even a year, and come back and it's still functioning, still profitable. So talk about how you've been able to do that.
We've been working over the past 2-3 years to make ourselves redundant.
When you start a business, you should book your 1 month trip after a year or two, because otherwise you would never do that.
When I was 19 years old, we were out in the middle of the ocean and the boat capsized. The experience of having held my dad in my arms and having to turn away from him and swim back to the boat, it rewired my brain. Something changed.
Welcome to H.U.N.K.S Talking Junk podcast, where we're talking all things leadership, branding, and culture. We're bringing in outside guests, business leaders, executives, external as well as internal franchise owners and team members to really help shed light and takeaways to help you better yourself as a leader and move forward in business and in life. So I'm joined here by two of my favorite franchise owners, franchise partners in the system. You're coming on 8 years in business as College H.U.N.K.S franchise owners up in Seattle, one of the largest and most successful, most profitable franchisees in our system. Just an incredible journey. So first of all, thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And the other thing that I think is so unique about both of you is you're both international, born in different countries, speak multiple languages, have traveled the world to many different countries, which we'll get into. But Magnus, I'll start with you. Like, how does somebody who's been in corporate international business with his wife end up in Seattle starting a moving and hauling business called College H.U.N.K.S Hauling, Junk, and Moving?
Yeah, interesting question. I think most of my life, I have gone with what I call my highly scientific, finely tuned instrument called my gut feeling. College H.U.N.K.S felt like a really good fit to us and to me personally. When I saw this brand and I got over this name that I thought was insane, and after 5 seconds I saw actually it was brilliant. I looked at the values and I just subscribed to the values, and that's what got me through the door.
Amazing. And Karin, I know that we were talking, you had such success in the corporate world internationally, but moving into this business, I know it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine from the beginning. What was some of the hardest parts for you to adjust into this business ownership? And I give you guys both a ton of credit. You didn't give up. A lot of people in what some might consider almost like a fish out of water type experience, you figured out how to swim and breathe and more importantly, thrive. So maybe talk about those first few days, months in business and what was so eye-opening for you.
So I moved from the corporate world. I was a hero there, very successful, and came here thinking that everything was going to be the same. I would find a job very easily. And because of the accent, language, my resume was all in Portuguese, Brazilian experience. So it was really hard. So when this opportunity for College H.U.N.K.S came, my mindset is everything you can learn. So I thought, okay, I can learn how to run a business I never run. And it's a franchise, has a system. So I immediately we took the decision really, really fast. Basically in 3 weeks, we start running the business. So after that, I was thinking everything would be easy. So when I started first day, I was like smashed in the wall, was a kind of I said, what the really challenge in this business is people, how to have good people, have people working. So we were going to days where nobody was showing up, just a few people. So we have to run. We were in this survival mode. So the biggest challenge was people, I would say.
You mentioned the language challenge, the accent. Was that a challenge from the beginning? Has that continued to be a challenge for you? And how do you feel like you've used it to an advantage in the process?
Yeah, I think I have to even push harder because being not a native, even getting the respect of everybody thinking, who is this foreigner coming here and telling me how to do my job? So I have to push even harder, lead by example and say, okay, this is the way to do. You have to trust. And sometimes push really people hard, demanding really hard to get people to respect me as a individual, as a people coming from another country.
Yeah, Magnus, obviously, this is your wife, your partner, but you've stepped in as well, and you guys have really created a nice complement within running the business. So maybe talk about when you sort of moved from, I think you kept your corporate job before going full time into this, and then realizing that you were going to kind of jump in along with Karin, as opposed to bailing her out and going and doing something else in a different business or a different industry.
When we came to this country, I was transferred from Brazil to here by my the company I worked for at the time, which I worked for a long, long time. And Karin couldn't find a job, so we bought the business. We then started running the business, and in the beginning for me, it was, it's nice. It's going to be like an extra income, but it takes a lot of time to get things like this running and off the ground, and actually to see some proper revenue coming in and proper profits. But after like 2 years, it became clear to me that, okay, this is where I want to go. This is going to be my last job. I want to quit my corporate job, and I want to work for College H.U.N.K.S. And I want to work for anybody else again in my life. Pretty big statement. And that's where I am right now. And the best thing I ever did was to actually join this brand.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, incredible testament to your guys' obviously talent as leaders. But again, I keep coming back to, doing it in a city or a state like, Seattle, Washington, where there's a lot of regulations, high cost of labor. It's the farthest away in the country from our home office of Tampa as you can get. So it's not like we were there, every other day being able to help you out. So for you to have just sort of this mindset of, we're going to do this and we're going to succeed. And I remember you would send me a note every year. My goal this year is to do X million. And then you would give me a call at the end of the year or send me an email with a screenshot of your revenue. And you're like, hey, we just surpassed that number. Yeah. And literally every year your prediction has come true. So, it speaks volumes to having a vision and then just executing to do that. Of course, you can't do it by yourselves. This is a business that requires people. So, talk about from a leadership perspective, a culture perspective, how did you start bringing in people? And by the way, last year, one of your team members won Hunk of the Year, Kirsten, a female hunk, no less, which is also unique, being in a pretty male-heavy industry, which we can get into as well with you, Karin, about that experience. But, talk about developing and finding the people that you needed to then help take the company to the next level as it is today.
The thing that we found very difficult in the beginning was to find good people, but then we couldn't pay good wages. So it's catch-22. It's very expensive to be poor. And it took us a long time to try to bring up the quality of both the training and the people, and also improve on the culture that we inherited when we bought the company, because that was not correct. Moving a culture is a massive undertaking. But as we started pushing for more growth, we started expanding and we started getting more revenue. We always wanted to get to 2 million. That was our goal in the beginning. That was the point that I spoke with Roman about, and you and everybody that didn't want to listen to me. We want to get to 2 million. Because we thought that might be where we can actually start to spend some real money. And whether that was the case or some other external factors came in, but 2 million was a tipping point for us. It basically tipped our company over into our exponential growth at the time. And we could spend more money on actually getting quality people. We could pay them better. We set up, or Karin, she actually developed a system that pays you based on your performance, which was a big thing that moved the needle in a great way in our company. Yeah. So we had to get to the 2 million. The 2 million was basically where we started tipping over in the right direction.
Wow. That's incredible. And Karin, talk about your leadership experience before College H.U.N.K.S. and some of the similarities as well as differences between, leading a multinational, international team across different countries to being in a single market with a home service business, and you have movers showing up every day. What was consistent through your leadership experience, and what were things that you had to adapt and evolve?
I am always relentless in wherever. I didn't see much difference working for others than working for myself because I always check myself. I'm giving the right payback to this company. I doing up to the higher level standard I'm supposed to give. So I was always giving my best, working for a corporate world, giving high results from the beginning, working like I never had this. Um, I never been like satisfied in the way I was. So I was always looking for how to improve this business, how to improve this company. Even in a 5 billion company, I was part of that. And moving to a smaller, I moved to a very different thing, to work for others, to work for my company. But the basis of that, how I am, didn't change. So I worked there, also relentless, always looking for improvement, process improvement. I didn't know much about the entrepreneur job. I know how to run, how to do admin, finance, this and that. So I focus on my high skills. I look all the operation. So I brought that to the company. And like when you own a business, you have everything you can do, everything you believe you can implement in yourself. So bringing the good things I have in myself to the company, and that's no stopping. The only thing you can stop is yourself. So that was the way I try to relentless do things.
Amazing. Yeah, that relentless drive is it goes a long way, obviously. And how do you divide up your roles in the business today? I know that you're not in the day-to-day every day, which is an amazing also goal for business owners to get to, but kind of where do you focus your energy when you're active in College H.U.N.K.S, and where's your energy focus? It sounds like more the finance,
I still
optimization.
oversee I still oversee operation, but my day to base, I'm out of operation, thanks God. I have good managers that run that, but I look all the numbers, KPIs, constantly monitor everything what's going on, and I'm into finance, marketing, so trying to always look for what can we improve.
Yeah.
And we are a lot focused now. I think we are in the other level in efficiency and quality. So how can we improve our efficiency?
That's great.
Yeah, so that's our challenge. Like we start the year. So what's our points we can improve that we are focused on?
Amazing. Magnus?
Yeah, we have very different skill sets. I always remember when you were saying that you were like executing, you like to get things moving, and Omar was floating around like a jellyfish, going with the stream. I always remember that because it's very graphic. And we have a similar dynamic in that Karin, she is super focused on processes, getting things done, executing and all of that stuff. And I'm more of a fluffy kind of, let's buy 3 trucks kind of stuff. So I think we supplement each other really, really well. And many years ago, when we started to wanted to go into the moving industry, because we started the business with no moving.
That's right.
And then 3 months later, we just tipped our, toes in. And then 2 summers, we did a little bit just to learn the trade. And on the 3rd summer, we said, okay, now we're going to push the button.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You guys started, you were just doing junk removal.
Yeah.
And then we as a brand were getting into moving more aggressively, but to your point, way out in the northwest of the country where we didn't have a lot of resources to support, you kind of had to dip your toe in and then your feet and then jump in.
And then, to continue that story, I said to Karin, I want to buy 3 trucks. And she said, no, you're not going to buy 3. I said, I need 3 trucks. And she said, no, you're not going to get 3 trucks. And that's the dynamic, how we work. Got my 3 trucks, but for the price of 1, because we bought, used trucks. So we got the capacity for the price that, she was willing to pay.
Yes.
And she's been the general manager of the company from day 1. So, the final word is there. But we've always had that really good yin and yang dynamic between us. So I think that has been one of the successes of our company, is that how different we are.
Yeah. Well, that's, look, we get asked, Omar and I, a lot. It's like, hey, you started a business with your best friend. 9 out of times, 10 times, that is going to end in the business and or the friendship in many cases deteriorating. Yeah. You guys are making it work both as a married couple as well as business partners. What's been the keys that you've seen that have allowed that to flourish, to A, make the business so successful, but also B, to ensure that the relationship stays strong along the way as well, even through the ups and downs and stressors, especially in those early days?
I think we need what was our end goal. We are our maturity level is higher. I think if we were doing that as a young couple would be a different story, but we knew where we want to go. And in the beginning, it was really hard to divide the stress in the job and at home. So we were bringing a lot of the stress at home. And nowadays, but it's completely different. I think it's less stress. We are traveling more, enjoying more life. But what keep us running was to know what we're facing, what is our end goal. And okay, we are going to this challenge. If you're going through hell, keep going. Winston Churchill said that, so just keep going.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think
quoting Winston Churchill on the podcast gets you extra points for that one.
Yeah, I think we became like a permanent threesome. Karin, myself, and College H.U.N.K.S. We did not really separate ourselves from College H.U.N.K.S. So we lived and breathed, and actually still do, College H.U.N.K.S. It may not be the best way of doing things, but for us, that's how we did it. So I said to a prospective owner many years ago, I said, remember when you go to bed with your husband, you're both working in College H.U.N.K.S. There's a third person in bed, and that's College H.U.N.K.S.
That's good. Yeah, it's funny. As somebody who with 4 kids of my own, we're doing everything we can to prevent our kids from crawling into bed with us because they want to sleep with us every night. But to your point, when it's a business, it's hard to, because your mind is on it, or inevitably something about what's going on the next day, or something that happened the day before. And that can create a little strain in the pillow talk, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Talk about just what a worldly perspective you guys have, having lived in different countries. I think you were sharing with me off camera, which you can tell here, is your first several dates were in multiple different countries after you guys were together. Talk about the sort of the worldly impact that and I guess perspective that you have. Where did the love of travel come from? But also, how has that perspective helped you become better leaders in business and in life?
I would say for us, or from obviously I can't speak for my wife, but I can speak for myself. Travel is something that came into my life after I had a tragedy when I was a young man, and I wanted to get more out of life. And I got this urge to see something more of the world. I had very low aspirations. Nobody in my family had ever gone to university, and we were all kind of blue-collar people. And something changed, and I wanted to do more and see more, and I got more drive. And I started traveling, went around the world. I'd never left Iceland ever, and left and came 7 months later after having traveled to 15 countries. It was the first trip abroad. And it's a bug that bites you, and you can never get rid of that disease. Once that bug is in your blood, it stays forever.
That travel bug.
But I think, living in different countries and living under different cultures, it makes you adaptable. So you have to adapt to where you live. You have to change how you speak. You have to even change your language. You have to learn the culture of the place where you go to. And I think that adaptability also helped us a lot in our business.
Oh, that's great. And you've been to how many countries now yourself?
I have traveled to, I believe, 81 different countries.
Wow.
And I've lived in 5 different countries.
Wow. And how about you, Karin, from the travel perspective?
56 countries, and I lived a year in London, so London, United States, and Brazil. Yeah.
Wow. And with the first dates were, I think you were telling me, 7
different countries, yes.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit outside the story of leadership, many, many years ago, I was at an international conference, and I'm standing in a lobby in a hotel. And it sounds like a scene from a Hollywood movie, because that's how it was. And I see the door open, I'm in the lobby with other people, and in walks this stunning woman. And she looks me dead straight in the eye and smiles this beautiful big smile, this smile here. And I go all like this, and then she walks straight past me and greets the person behind me. And that was the spark. And that's when everything started. And we started dating and dated remotely. And our seven first dates were in 7 different countries,
Wow.
which is pretty neat to think about that.
That's incredible. So yeah, I mean, lived born and lived in multiple countries, speak multiple languages. Your first dates were in 7 different countries. You've traveled to collectively, well over 100 different countries. You've got your home base in Seattle, Washington, where you have this, unique home service business of all things. It's like if someone were describing it, they would think that those two don't go hand in hand, and yet your approach and I guess the way you view the values of the business has allowed you and afforded you the opportunity to sort of live your passions while then also continuing to travel. Most business owners, myself included in the early days, become sort of almost connected to and tied at the hip to the business to the point where travel just seems like overwhelming or daunting. And I think I read early on in our business, an aspiration is to get your business systemized to a point where you could walk away from it for a month, maybe even a year, and come back and it's still functioning, still profitable. So talk about how you've been able to do that. You take these long trips throughout the year. The business is still growing every year. You're able to plug back into the business and then, separate to go continue your travels and your passions. So what's been the key to putting those in place? Because I think that's very aspirational and admirable for many business owners, not just in our franchise.
Yeah.
I heard once a story, I don't know if it was in College H.U.N.K.S, that when you start a business, you should book your 1-month trip after a year or two. Yeah, because otherwise you would never do that. So in the beginning, Magnus can speak more about that. We couldn't travel. Magnus always says, like a baby, you have to take care 24 hours. So, but when you have, like, we went to this mode to hire better people, put more money up front, so we could have a management team to carry the business. So we start going back to what we love the most is travel, what builds you memories. And when you go back of your memories in years, you just remember like these moments that bring you emotions. So that's when we start after 3-4 years, starting doing shorter trips. And now last year we did a 6-week trip to Africa.
Wow.
We visited 7 countries. I think Magnus can talk more about that.
Yeah, it's about putting people in positions that are able to run the company. So we've been working over the past 2-3 years, to make ourselves redundant. I think I've been more successful than Karin on that front.
What you say is you're replaceable. She's irreplaceable.
Absolutely. That's absolutely what I'm saying. There is going to be nobody taking over Karin's job. That has to be split between many people. When the time comes, he's not going to be there. But yeah, it's about having people that can actually, make good decisions.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's all about in the end. People making, the best decisions based on the data they have at any given time.
Yeah, I always say, we want team members that we can empower to make decisions as if they own the company.
Yeah.
And to be able to ask themselves, when they make a decision, is it good for the company? Is it good for the client? And is it ethical and in line with the core values? And if they can, and am I willing to be held accountable to the decision, of course, because a good leader should be willing to be held accountable to the decisions they make, even if it's not the right one.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll learn from it. How have you found those people? How have you developed those individuals? And then also, that's leadership, but also how has that become part of your culture? And now it's part of the DNA of your franchise, which is a multi-million-dollar business.
I mean, to find people is, as you would know, and you've spoken to the point of this, it's hard. People can talk a good game, and then you put them on the field, and they can't kick the ball. So it is trial and error to some extent. But what happens is that once you develop your team and you get stronger players, they don't tolerate weak players.
Yeah.
But that's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And for us, it actually took years to get to the point where we have this peer pressure on like this person is not good for us. This person shouldn't really be here. But that's the environment that we are trying to foster. And I think we have to a large extent now. We will never be done. It's a never-ending process. You're never going to have, today is going to be the day where everything's going to be perfect. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think once you find a good team, they will push the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps the wheel spinning.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. That's the flywheel theme of our conference is, is getting the great people, training them, delivering a great service. It turns into that repeat referral that can then be ultimately reinvested. And I just think back, like the level, you guys probably take this for granted because it's just within you, but the level of sort of persistence and pain threshold and resilience, resourcefulness to be able to, patience really, to be able to work through all of those evolutions as you were working to getting it right, working to getting it right. Eventually you hit a tipping point at 2 million where things started to feel a little bit easier and you were able to reinvest in more marketing, more people, more trucks. But those early days are tough.
Yeah.
Was there any specific things that you felt like you had to tap into to say, we're going to keep going, as opposed to this is too hard, let's go do something else, or let's go back into the corporate world? Like, what do you think what was that gave you that no quit, this is going to work?
Once I started, I never passed to my mind to quit. I passed, but I never execute
Entertain
that.
it, yeah.
So I think it's just, we cannot sink, we have to swim. So let's swim here and let's go day by day. And we start to improve this process slowly. So for who is starting now, is a process. You cannot implement everything you have now. You have to choose, prioritize, and implement some like task lists or checklists for people to do. And then we start to evolve. Okay, we realize, young people are salespeople. So we start to give huge bonus based on performance. So what's the skill of this person is up to this or is up to that. And we were able to hire better managers. If you pay the minimum, you get the minimum. So when you pay better, you can demand more, and you can expect more for these people. So we took kind of a leap of faith, putting money in front, but the results were amazing.
Yeah.
So, and then later on, investing in marketing, we were very budget limited. We kind of opened that. Of course, you have to measure your capacity. You cannot open at once. So we start to really see the revenue coming, and we spend really heavily in marketing after that. And then further on, we could see, let's go back to our basic procedures and keep improving that.
Yeah.
So we kept improving, and now we are just focusing on efficiency. One example is we brought the billing in-house, like we were leaving for moves to do the billing there, but they were like missing 30 minutes in every single job. That turns out to be $100,000, $200,000 a year. So we brought that in-house. So we are like, and we measure how we are in minutes, positive or negative, in building in terms of what we should build and that. So we measure those things, and we keep looking for what's the next step of efficiency and quality. We want repeated customers. So we want to give the best. Our NPS in Move lately is 95, so it's amazing.
Wow.
So for our company, so we really focus in training and having quality jobs provided to customer.
Amazing. Magnus, if you don't mind me asking, you mentioned, and you've shared with me a little bit about the tragedy you experienced as a child and how that helped form who you are and your perspective and outlook on life. Do you mind maybe expanding upon that a little bit?
When I was young, my dad had a boat, a fishing boat, so he would go and do commercial fishing every summer. And I started working with him when I was 9 years old. So I would go out on the boat with him, and I would work 3 to 4 months a year every summer because I wanted the money. I was not focused on friendships or anything like that. I just wanted the money. And this went on for years and years and years. And when I was 19 years old, we were out in the middle of the ocean, and my sister was on the boat as well, and my dad, and the boat capsized. And the long story, but the short part of it is that, my father drowned in that accident, and my sister and I, we managed to get on top of the capsized boat. And then I had to dive under the boat to go and get the life raft and get that out. And after some fight and hopefully some luck, we got into that life raft, and then we just cut away and we just drifted out into the storm. And then 18 hours later, we were picked up by American the American forces. There was a base in Iceland at the time, and they had a rescue helicopter, and they picked us up. The experience of having held my dad in my arms and having to turn away from him and swim back to the boat, it rewired my brain. Something changed, and it never changed back. And before this, as an example, I had my car was a Lada. It's a Russian car, small family car. After this, I was driving a Mustang King Cobra because I realized, life is now. It's not something that, I should be planning for too much. Let's enjoy the moment because we don't know how long it's going to last.
Wow.
And I think it changed the way that I think. I used to be very organized. Everything used to be in its place. And yeah, not that important.
Oh, man, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry that that was something that you went through, and I think for you to have that perspective of how that's helped to shape you, and obviously the the impact that you've been able to make in your communities with your team members and across the world is an inspiration that I'm very grateful to know you and have shared in your success journey as well. Magnus, a question popped into my head. You mentioned that your gut is your scientific decision-making process. Any examples that you can think of where that's led you astray, or where that you maybe needed a little more financial diligence or technical evaluation?
No, I can think of things of instances where I did not go with my gut and I regretted it.
Wow.
Gut feeling is not gut feeling. Gut feeling is experience. This has been researched. I thought it was something special. It is not. Gut feelings are based on your experiences. You feel if it's right. You know it based on your past experiences. So no, I don't think I've ever made a gut feeling decision that I regretted. No.
Why do you think some people either don't trust their gut or don't have as much of an intuition as it sounds like you've had this antenna that you've been able to tap into and lean into?
Like I said, I think this is connected to experience. So if you have grown up in the same neighborhood and you haven't really expanded your horizons, you're not going to have a lot of experience. So I think the more you go out in the world and you see different things, you gain more experience.
You start recognizing patterns or signs or signals that you can then act upon.
Absolutely.
Fascinating.
Yeah, just another way to say gut feeling is we don't overanalyze things. Like, it took us a week to decide for College H.U.N.K.S. Of course, we didn't went deep in anything. We had look a little bit, company, the numbers, and let's make the decision really fast. If you take too long to make decisions, it frees you.
Yeah.
That goes for bigger. I think maybe it was too fast a week to take a big decision like that. But in your day-to-day business, you need to make decisions like we heard today. You can fail. You need to realize early stage if you fail or not and redo the things, But if you overthink, overanalyze, then you freeze. You keep in that position.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful mindset to have too, is this willingness to fail forward quickly, pick up, adjust, iterate, and improve continuously. And then if you can do that effectively, as long as you're not falling forward off of a cliff, you're actually falling forward up the mountain in a positive way and brushing your skin knees off along the way. From a branding perspective, the brand, as you said, was a funny name. Hauling junk wasn't something you ever aspired to be in business doing. Talked about the gut. So was it just purely a gut piece that once you realized that the name was an intention creator and that the demand was here in the U.S., we buy a lot of stuff, so we need to get rid of stuff, that there was the demand there? Or how did you guys realize that there was an opportunity in this business and that you were going to make this the next phase of your career?
I'm going to use the word luck. My wife doesn't like that word. Obviously, we were lucky to be in the right place when College H.U.N.K.S was in front of us. I think history has shown that that was pure luck. But when we bought the company, it had been running for 2 years, and we believed when we looked at the numbers, or when we, I say Royal VC, looked at the numbers, that there was potential there for more. And we wanted a scalable business because we had looked at other franchises and they were not as scalable as College H.U.N.K.S was. And there was just something that clicked when we got into this. And we have used the values, like when new people come into our office and I speak to them for the first time, and we have training classes, I spend probably 20 to 30 minutes just talking about the values. And I tell them, if you identify with this, you're in the right place. If you do not identify with this, you probably should not continue. Because if this is not who you are, because this is who I am, you're probably not going to do well here. So the brand name was catching and all that stuff, but the values was really the hook.
I think that is kind of a marriage, but at this point we both with like each other. We didn't know how each other worked. We read in the website. I went to a short training, but at this time the decision was made. So I think luck is also right to say, you know, we went to a franchise where you and Omar, you are so deep in the business. Everybody we see is always trying to help each other. We are here also to help other franchisees to grow. So I think in this perspective, we were really lucky to go to the right company. We almost purchased another franchise. So we swapped this decision like in 1 minute, in 1 minute meeting. So, and then, like I said,
here we are.
Here we are after 8 years.
You guys invest in your people. We talked about your hunk of the year, or the national hunk of the year was from your location. Maybe talk a little bit about Kirsten as hunk of the year, but just, you know, investing in your people in general, how that's been able to pay off. And I think, again, that's a testament to your leadership, developing a world-class culture that's known in the markets that you're in, and has paid off financially for you guys as well.
Yeah, I think what gives us big pleasure is to see our employees going to the next level, like buying a new car, etc. When we purchased the company, the cars were like duct tape. And now we see people with Jaguar, with BMW there.
Wow.
And Seattle is a really harsh market. So in the beginning it was very difficult. So as we grow, as we had more profit, one of the things is, okay, let's give more to the people. So we also invested in them for 401k. We health insurance are very good, the same we use. So we try to give more back to the employees, as valuable as they are for us.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you guys very much for doing this. I got to say, again, you guys are an inspiration. I mean, international couple, traveled the world, decided to buy a franchise in Seattle, Washington, and made it a multi-million-dollar business that's allowing you guys to have, you know, live the life of your dreams. You know, it's the American dream, really, is at least the way it's written about. And the fact that you guys have been able to maintain such a continued $1 million smile and continued winning, you know, marriage between you is also really admirable. So let's keep up with the great work, and let's see how far we can take it.
Yeah.
And thank you for having us, because I think when you let us in, I think you made a gut feeling as well.
You had.
You didn't know us. That's right.
Yeah, you didn't know us.
Yep, you're right. That's part of the gut. Thank you.
Us, yes.
So that was another episode of H.U.N.K.S Talking Junk, Leadership, Branding, and Culture podcast. We were with Karin and Magnus. Amazing message from these two individuals. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and comment, and tune in to learn more and help take your leadership to the next level.